So if you don't know who the Olmecs are, they are Mesoamerica's most ancient and mysterious civilization. They gave birth to the Mesoamerican calendar, writing, and megalithic stonework. They arrive in the historical record as a fully formed civilization, seemingly out of nowhere, and erect the largest monuments that Mesoamerica would ever see at the very beginning of time. And before you ever venture off into the Olmec heartland, the only thing you can think of when anyone mentions the Olmecs are the colossal basalt heads, weighing anywhere from 6 to 52 tons. But once you explore the Olmec realm on foot, you begin to realize that there is so much more out there to be seen and uncovered. One of the first things that I saw at the site of La Venta are these scattered basalt columns used to erect something that most people have probably never seen before, which I call column tombs. They kind of look like Lincoln logs, and these were probably brought in shipments by the dozens from the Sierra de la Tuxtla Mountains of Veracruz, over 90 kilometers away. But of course, no body has ever been found in these column tombs. And granted, that may be because the acidic soil erodes everything away, leaving nothing for archaeologists to find over 3,000 years later. But it's still a mystery. I took measurements of these basalt columns, some of which had been smashed or broken apart or had fallen, and I did a calculation that gave me an estimate which put the average column anywhere from around 2 to 7 tons. But some were of course much larger than this, sometimes more than twice as large. Now it seems that not all of these basalt columns were being used for assembling tombs. We can really only speculate as to what the other uses were for, but some people have proposed that they were used for encircling ceremonial or exclusive areas, or even acting as stone fences or walls with the limited evidence that we have, which is almost none. The use of these columns in their entirety is still a mystery. Like I was saying earlier, some of these columns are actually twice as large and twice the length of a standard column. This one here is about 12 feet tall, putting it somewhere in the range of 13 to 15 tons. While this fallen column, measured to be about 20 feet long, is perhaps somewhere around 20 tons. And you have to keep in mind that in all likelihood, the Olmecs were transporting multitudes of these all at once, which might actually be a bigger feat than transporting one single head at a time, which is just simply amazing. The next surprise was the tall stele standing out in front of the Great Pyramid of La Venta. Now, the pyramid itself is not made of stone, of course, it's packed earth, but it's composed of about 200,000 tons of earth and fill. Now, just imagine the kind of organization and wealth that it takes to commission a structure of this size, while you're also commissioning thousands of tons of basalt from over 90 kilometers away, as well as hundreds, if not thousands of tons of jade and serpentine stone from deep within the jungles of Guatemala. These were powerful people to be able to erect huge 15-foot tall monuments at the base of their pyramid. Now, do we have any idea as to what the meaning is behind the artworks found on these stelae and anywhere else in the Olmec world? Well, not really. Almost all of the context which gives us meaning towards the Olmec monuments is completely lost. The Olmecs are a truly lost civilization whose names we don't even know. We only call them the Olmecs because that is the name that the Aztecs, who spoke to the Spanish conquistadors in the early 1500s, named the people who were farming rubber in the Olmec area 3,000 years after the time of the colossal heads. The term Olmec in the Aztec language means rubber people, or people from the land of rubber. But what this civilization actually called itself, we have no idea. It far, far predates even the Maya. As I was leaving La Venta, I came across something that I didn't even know existed, a small Olmec head. Only 10 of these heads have been discovered in the Olmec world, and of those 10, I only saw 2 in person, and have been able to find only very few photos of them. Of the 2 that I've seen in person and the few that I've seen in photos, it seems that all of these small heads do not represent actual people in the same way that the colossal heads do. These small heads seem to represent what we call the were-jaguar, which causes an interesting conundrum. On one hand and one half of Olmec society, we have these giant basalt heads that are being erected, which are certainly portraits of living, breathing kings or very important men within Olmec society. But on the other hand, this more unseen side of the Olmec world is this were-jaguar, these shamanic people who present themselves as being fused with the vital essence of a jaguar. And these were-jaguars do have stone heads, but they're much, much smaller than the larger human heads. So we have an interesting conundrum here, especially after I share with you what I found just a few minutes after this. After visiting the archaeological site of La Venta, we stopped by La Venta's museum, which is something you would hardly call a museum. It was more like a large building with a metal roof, where all of the monuments from the archaeological site were moved to protect them from being further eroded. And when Dr. Barnhart and I walked in, we stopped, looked at each other, and we were both absolutely floored by what was standing right in front of us. 3 colossal limestone heads, much larger in size than any of the basalt heads. All 3 were highly eroded, and you could tell that they did not depict a human, but rather they were the were-jaguar. With the right information, you could potentially find photos of these were-jaguar heads on the internet, but if you didn't already know these heads existed, you would never find them. My estimations of these heads, which are around 5 feet wide, 4 feet deep, and around 11.5 feet tall, come out to be somewhere in the ballpark of 15 tons, maybe more. But we now have 15 known basalt heads representing figures that we can definitively say are fully human, as well as 3 huge limestone heads that represent figures that we can definitively say are were-jaguars. Shamanic crossovers between a human and a jaguar. Which makes me curious if there's some kind of correlation here between the status of a human as well as the material used to depict that person. Why do we not find limestone heads of humans and basalt heads of were-jaguars? We do see small basalt were-jaguar heads, but they are never larger than the king's heads. There's certainly something here, but the Olmec knowledge behind these reasonings are just lost to us, and it's a puzzle just waiting to be assembled.